Hi everybody, welcome to Teddy TV. A little bit out of breath because we're on the wander today. The last couple of weeks we've covered still waters, mixed bags, silverfish, bit of feeder fishing. And this week I'm on the wander and we're going to be focusing on running water. And this is the venue for today. This is the River Witham, and we're on the upper reaches on the edge of Lincolnshire and Nottingham. And the plan today, albeit out of breath, will be to set up, have a couple of hours on the Stickfloat, potentially the Whip as well, and then we might have a little wander and find some deep holes and hopefully aim for some chub. So let's get walking. Well, we're all set up then for our session here on the Upper Witham. Nice and simple today. I'm going to start with a stick float. I've got quite a nice long glide here, and I think it might take me a little while to draw some fish upstream. And then the plan is really, if I can build a bit of a shoal together, I'll then put in some ground bait. I've put together a mix of Teddy Fisher's river and roach, and I mix them half and half. And added a bit of roasted hemp as well, and that should concentrate the fish in one spot. There's two challenges we're going to face today. One is pike. There's a hell of a lot of pike in here, and I don't fancy getting tangled up with them too much. I have got a little spinning rod actually, because if I do have too many problems, I'll try and extract it from the swim and move it upstream or downstream. But the biggest challenge is minnows. This river is full of them, which are great food for pike and perch as well. Some big old perch in here. But the main aim today is roach, dace, grayling, perch, little chub. And all I'm doing, on the bait tray I've got some maggots, red and white maggots. I'm feeding them pretty much sort of in front of me there. And some hemp seeds, some chili hemp. I like spicy baits in the winter time. Feed that a bit further downstream. I'm going to run the stick float over the top. And as I say, it's quite a nice long glide. And if need be, when those fish start drawing them up, I get them in one spot, I'll then potentially get the whip out, and the whip will offer me a great way of presenting a rig right over the ground bait, but also if I get the roach on the hemp, it's a better way of fishing a hemp seed on the hook rather than trying to cast it out. I'll run you through the rig. It's pretty straightforward stuff. It took me literally sort of 10 minutes to set up today, which is great. It's an 11-foot pellet waggler rod. Don't need any specialist stick float rod on this little river. It's nice and soft, which is fine. I've got a little closed face reel. It's an old school Daiwa one. I like a closed face because the line can just mend off. And it's really easy to sort of pick up on the strike. It's 3-pound Maxima main line. The float I've got, and I'll do a close-up of this later, it's an old school float. It's a John Allerton alloy 4x4. The general rule of thumb with stick float is use a number 4 for every foot of water you're fishing in, and this swim's about 4.5 foot deep, so 4 number 4 is perfect. It's very clear. I was actually hoping for a bit more flow today, but we've not really had that much rain. I can see down probably 2 foot or so in the 4 foot of water. I can see the bottom of my keep net and soaking the pike, which is a bit of a worry. But because of the minnows, I've shot my rig slightly different than I normally would. Oh, I've caught my landing net. I have got 2 number 4s, bolts halfway down. And the idea is that will bomb through them little minnows that just attack the maggots as soon as they enter the water. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 number 8s down the line to offer a bit more of a natural fall. I'm just tripping the bottom at the minute. I might lay on a little bit more, I might come a couple of inches off depth. It depends how the fish want to take it. I've been fishing sort of 15 minutes or so, and I've already had 2 grayling, a little perch and a couple of roach, and also a little dace as well, so it's a good start. And as I say, if I start getting any sort of shoal together in one spot, then the whip could come into play and I'll catch a lot quicker using that. But let's have a couple of chucks now, see where we can catch you a fish. Just casting a stick float, dead simple. Just grab the bulk or the line and just flick it on at the side like that. A little bit of hemp over the top. Some maggots just slightly upstream. and then just mend the line as the float trundles down, trying to keep a relatively tight line for when you want to strike. And that float's going lovely. You can see where the main flow is because of the scum on the surface, and I'm just on the edge of it, just there. The flow comes round and hits this bank and then goes on the inside. There's a bite and a fish. What we've got here, you see it's incredibly clear. Oh, that one's come off, that's a shame. Hook length wise, it's a point, it's about £3 as well. 2.5, £3, 0.12 with a 16s Drennan carp maggot. It's barbless, this one, and if I keep losing fish like that, I might well go to a red maggot hook, which is microbarbed. Little tangle. Just flick like that to the side. There we go, perfect. A couple of grains of hemp. A couple of maggots just there. Now, top tip on these little rivers as well is have a walk when it's low like this, or in the summertime when the water's very, very low. Because what that means, it gives you the ability to search for these holes. I know that this area's got a bit of depth because I've wandered along when the water's been very, very low. And you know it's just going to be a natural fish holding spot. There's a lot of sort of shallows up towards that bridge that we passed before. There's a lot of shallows further down as it bends round as well. So in this weather, when it's sort of 6 degrees, there's a bite, you're looking for a little bit of depth. Ah, this is the problem. Remember I said about minnows? Great perch food, but not good fishing. We'll throw that straight back. I'll try double maggot now because it might be too big for them tiny minnows to get in the mouth. There we go, lovely. The great thing about these little rivers as well is you don't need a load of bait. Oh, there's a bite. That's interesting. Right on where I fed. Bait looks okay. I'm expecting bites further down. So that's a good sign, because that means that the fish are coming up to my bait. It might be their minnows though, looking at the float there. Oh, that's a better bite, a better fish. What have we got here? Perch. Okay. So nice little perch. Pop him in the net. And if we can get a few of them going, I'm sure that will attract its bigger brothers. What we don't want are those pike, pesky pike. As I say, the stick float's great because I can trot this very far downstream. I'm not needing to at the minute. I'm getting bites pretty much on top of the feed looking at this. That must be them minnows. So what that could mean is I might get the whip out a bit quicker than I anticipated. So we'll catch a hell of a lot quicker fishing a whip. But this is just a lovely way of fishing. You don't need lots of gear, just got a rucksack and a little canal basket to sit on, and the bank's quite uneven. And it's just totally different from fishing a commercial with all your pole and your top kits and all your gear everywhere. This is just a nice way of catching fish in the winter time. We've been fishing about an hour now, and the stick float's working a dream. We've had some grayling, some chunky roach, a couple of those perch, some dace, but we are getting plagued by those minnows as predicted. So it might be time now to put some ground bait in, concentrate those fish, and fish the whip over the top. I think it's going to give me the best chance of putting a bit of a weight together. Now I've brought some fish into the area. and hopefully avoid these little bits and pieces that are just attacking the bait. I mean, this is a lovely way of fishing, it really is, but I just think presentation wise, and get some more weight down the line, get some feed in, and attract a better stamp of fish. It's a better fish. It's a nice roach. Good stamp. Well, I mentioned being plagued by those minnows, so now it's the time to get on the whip, get some bait into the swim. There's definitely a few fish here, so I'm going to put in 3 little balls, sort of golf ball size, just down on the edge of that main flow, and that should give me a run where I can fish around 6 metres to hand. I've got another option as well where I've seen fish topping along that far bank, and it could be that there's some fish out of the flow underneath those rushes, just out of the way of any predators, etc. And I could put a little rig just across and fish it almost like a pole on a canal, if you like, out of the flow, and just sort of hold it there, and that could work as well. But in the meantime, 3 balls, nice and positive, right down the middle just there. There's no bait in the ground bait, just the cereal that's in the mix and that ground hemp, and I think that positive method is going to make a big difference. I'll run you through the rig shortly and see if we can get a few. Well, the session's going as I had hoped. I've swapped over now to the whip, trundling my bait over those 3 balls of ground bait that I put in. The whip is sort of just shy of 6 metres to hand. I've left 10 inches or so just to allow for me to swing the fish in. I've actually got elastic in the whip. I've got a 12 solid elastic just to cushion the strike, and if I do hook a bigger fish, one of those bigger perch or maybe a chub, it gives me a bit more of control over the fish. The rig is simplicity in itself. I've got £3 Maxima line as the main line. I like to use a stiff, non-low diameter line. It allows me to flick it out easier, less tangles. The float's just shy of a gram, and I've got a 0.8 Olivet just running up and down the line there, and stopped with a number 8 trimmer, and then a short sort of 12-inch hook length of £3, and a size that's an 18 hook. I've just scaled down very slightly, and we're just flicking it out. The Olivet drops down, continuing with the hemp and a few maggots over the top as well, and then we just follow the float, keeping a tight line until we get to where that ground bait is, about there, and there's a bite. I just missed it, and it's a lot quicker than the stick float. As lovely as fishing the stick float is, one of my favourite methods, and it allows you to search a lot more water, just this in terms of putting a weight together is much better. If I miss a bite, I can just get out pretty sharpish over the top, just like that. Still getting plagued by a few minnows, but there's definitely less of them around. I've had a few nice roach which are sort of 3-4 ounce, and that's what we're looking for. And if bites do dry up, I don't hesitate in just a little nugget of ground bait just over the top. You know, these fish are rarely caught, but throwing in little balls of ground bait certainly doesn't put them off. Well, I've been fishing a couple of hours now, and it's been minnow city, it really has. Probably 4 or 5 minnows for every silverfish. So I've made a couple of adjustments. My thinking is that maybe those minnows are in that slightly slacker water where I was fishing. I was fishing on the edge of the flow. So I've come in a little bit where it's a bit quicker on the inside, and I've come off the bottom a little bit, so my bait runs through that a little bit quicker. And I've had a couple of roach, so it's made a bit of a difference, but they've been a real nuisance. They have. I said at the start of the session it could be pike, it could be minnows, and today it's minnow central. So I'm going to keep plugging away, topping up with little balls of ground bait, and it's, as I say, it's definitely got a couple of roach in the vicinity. And I'm going to up the feed with the hemp seed as well, and see if that puts them off a bit further. Well, the whip's working well, the rig's running through lovely. There's a slight upstream wind developing, which could cause a few problems, but in general, so far so good. I've even started putting minnows in the keep net, thinking that, you know, catch what's there sort of thing, but I think there's that many of them, it's not making a blind bit of difference. I mentioned as well I've brought some worms, and I trundled a couple of worms along that far bank and managed a couple of perch as well. But these are real pesky devils, these minnows. And we just need to keep plugging away and hope that the better silverfish bully them out the way. Better dace. We're coming to the end of the session now, and as you can see, I'm back on the stick float. Just wanted to search a different area a little bit further downstream away from my main feed. The whip was working well, but still getting plagued by those minnows. I've scaled down hook length as well. I'm now on a 2 pound hook length with a 20s hook. Just a little bit of finesse for those silverfish. The bigger hook wasn't making any difference for those minnows, so a little change. But the biggest change I've made, as I mentioned before, I've come into that main flow, but I've also cut out feeding maggots. I'm still feeding the odd little ball of ground bait over the top, and I'm just feeding a few grains of femp every run through, and it seems to have made a difference. It's definitely put off the minnows and improved the silverfish fishing. So I'm just going beyond the feed there now, just a little bit further past where those main balls went in earlier on in the session today. And it's definitely improved the catch rate, cutting out them maggots. I'm thinking perhaps what else could have worked well today could have been bread. So liquidised bread with some punch. I think that may well have put off the minnows and concentrated more on the roach. And I also think the worms as well. I put some worms in the ground bait earlier on and had a couple of perch. So perhaps a couple of bait droppers with chopped worm. Because these minnows have been a real pest today. We're probably talking 3 or 4 minnows before we get a silverfish. There we go. Nice roach, and these are the stamp we've been getting since we stopped feeding those maggots. So I think we'll carry on plugging away. If the fish do sort of come back a little bit, come back towards me a bit more, then perhaps we'll finish with a flurry on the whip. But in the meantime, I'll keep plugging away and popping these odd roach and perch and bits and pieces in the net. I made up catching 2 grayling, that's been lovely. And to be fair, you know, fishing a stick float, it's just a lovely day's fishing, it really is. And then minnows might have been an absolute pest, but well, they've kept the float going under anyway. So we'll continue, and then we'll get a little catch shot. Well, we've had a lovely few hours on the Witham today, demonstrating 2 really simple tactics in the form of the stick float to search the swim, and then the whip to concentrate the fish over the feed. The key really to avoid all those minnows that I was getting plagued by was to cut out the maggots and essentially just feed hemp seed and little nuggets of crumb over the top. We've had some lovely roach, plenty of dace, a couple of grayling which have been beautiful. They'll grow on to be very bonny fish, I'm sure. So give your local river a try. You're pretty much guaranteed bites in the winter. Just keep it softly and keep it simple. Enjoy your fishing.